Hello, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 NATHPO Annual Conference. My name is Shasta Gaughan. I am the chair of the board of directors for NATHPO, and I am delighted that we are finally all together in person for the first time since 2018. I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause for making it here and making it through the last 3 years. Yay! I am very proud and honored to be able to introduce to the stage Principal Chief Richard Sneed of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. They are our hosts for the conference this year, and we are so proud and happy to be here with you, Principal Chief Sneed.
Siyo Nigada, good morning. Good morning. Guys, it's almost 9 o'clock. I was, when I saw the schedule, I thought, well, that's really brilliant to start at 9 because, for most of us, our work day usually starts a lot earlier. You get to go to a conference, get a maybe extra 30 minutes of sleep, and then come have a good breakfast. And you get to come hear this rousing, super inspiring, motivational talk I'm going to do this morning. There's like 5 people who are really excited about that. Well, my name is Richard Sneed, and I have the honor of serving as the Principal Chief of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. I'm the 28th Principal Chief. And I want to talk to you this morning, utilizing the theme of the conference, which is Voices of Truth, Our Knowledge, Our Power. Now, this is a little bit interactive, so I want you to raise your hand if you want your life to have meaning. All right. Raise your hand if you want your life to have purpose. All right, got a lot of motivated people. Raise your hand if you want to be courageous. And not so many hands on that one. Raise your hand if you want your life to be epic. All right, let's get rolling then. If I want to say this morning, it's great. I propose to you today that in the context of your vocation, what you're already doing, you're already positioned to have meaning, to have purpose, to be courageous, and to be epic. If. How many know if is a really big word? There's lots of, it's a really big word. There's lots of things we could have in our life, only if. Well, in our language, we say, do things the right way. If we do things the right way, we can have all these things. So let's talk about history for a second. History is an interesting concept. The very word finds its origin from the Old French histoire, which means story, to chronicle. Also from the Latin historia and the Greek historia, which is a narrative of past events, a learning or knowing by inquiry, and it's from the root word histor, which is a noun, and it's one who knows or sees or who is an expert witness. Say it with me, histor. Histor. This is interactive, guys. Come wake up. Now I want you to remember that word because we're going to come back to it later. So history, it's an accounting of the past. A chronicle, a story for future generations that helps to give identity and meaning to our existence. I want to tell you a little bit about identity. And I want to tell you that in our Cherokee culture, there is a value. One of our core values is a sense of belonging, a sense of place. I'm going to talk about identity for just one moment. When I was really young, I was born here. My parents got divorced. It was 1967. It was a long time ago. And my parents got divorced when I was just an infant. My mom took my sister and I to Illinois first. I have no memory of that. Then she took us to New Jersey. And my earliest memories are of New Jersey, which is why I have perfect hair, because I grew up in New Jersey. Anybody who's watched Jersey Shore, you get it. So when I was 14 years old, and I never knew my dad. I remember finding a picture when I was really young, maybe 4 or 5 years old, of this really dark complected man with a flat top haircut holding a baby. And I remember saying to my mom, "Mommy, who is that?" And she said, "Well, that's you." And I said, "No, who's that man?" She goes, "Well, that's your daddy." That was the end of the conversation. So I never knew my dad. And then when I was 14 years old, I met my dad for the first time. He came to New Jersey. Actually, I was 13. He came to New Jersey for one day and I met him. And a year later, I came down here to live with him. And I came not under great circumstances. I know I have it all together now. I really don't. But at 14, I was really confused and lost, and I really didn't have it together. And my single mom didn't know what to do with me. So she basically gave me the ultimatum of either you go to this place here and you get help and treatment, or you go live with your father. And I called her bluff, and I said, because I don't even know him. She's not going to send me down there. I'm like, I'll go live with my father. She's like, okay. She goes and gets on the phone. You remember when you had to do this? And so I remember her doing that in the kitchen, and she called and she was like, your son's in trouble and he needs to come live with you. And 3 days later, I was in Cherokee. And I came to live with a stranger, and I came to live with a family of strangers. I didn't know anybody. And this followed me all the way after I graduated high school. I joined the Marine Corps, and I always had this sense that I didn't belong, that I had no place. There was like this hole in my heart where I just didn't know who I was. I didn't have identity. And this followed me for a long time, all the way up into my 20s. And I remember I was probably about 27 years old. And right up on the hill back here, my father had some property. And at the time I was young and I was married and I had 2 kids and we were renting an apartment. And my dad told me, he said, I've got some property and I'll give you a couple acres and you can put a house on it. Oh, great. Let's go look at it. Now you got to understand, this time my father and I had never had a conversation. My existence with my father was I would be walking out of the house, and back when people used to read the newspaper, my father would be sitting at the table every morning with his coffee and the paper. And he would never put the paper down when I walked through. He would just bark an order off. Better get that damn haircut. Yes, sir. Because I had a mullet back then. Y'all, if you remember, it's back. Or he would say, you better get that wood stacked. You get home from school. Yes, sir. How many had dad like that? There was no conversation. It was just orders, right? And so I always had this sense that I didn't belong. I always had this sense that I had no identity. And so my dad tells me about this piece of property. He says, I'll take you up there. We'll go look at it. So we go and we drive up this gravel road up to the side of the mountain and we park. And he looks up the side of the mountain. He says, it's right up there. It's like 2.5 acres. But my attention was over here because there was a graveyard. And I said, whose graveyard's that? I said, I didn't even know that was up here. He said, oh, that's the family graveyard. Come with me. And for the next 45 minutes, my dad walked me through this graveyard and showed me my history. He showed me all my people. He showed me everyone who had come before me. He told me stories about each one of them. He showed me my grandfather's grave and how I looked, he died in World War II. He died on the battlefield in Germany, and it said so. It said so in his on his headstone. Or my great uncle, Samuel Otter, who was in the Navy and also died in World War II. And my father had a little baby brother that only lived to be a year old, and then he died. I didn't even know he existed. And all these Sneeds that lived to be 100 years old. And I'm like, man, I hope I don't live to be 100. But something happened to me that day. I remember driving home that day, and the hole was filled. All of a sudden, I knew who I was. I knew my place. I knew where I came from. I knew that I belonged. That's the power of history. It gives us identity. And that's just a quick story to show you how powerful it is. It's an accounting of who we are. History inspires us. It forewarns us. It challenges us to aspire to be greater than the current version of ourselves. It teaches us. It admonishes. It rebukes. It corrects and encourages us, for it's our story, the story of humanity. And I have to tell you, family history matters too. Raise your hand if you know that to be true. We're missing it in our country now. The family's in a lot of trouble, and a lot of young people are just like I was when I was that kid. They don't know who they are, or where they came from, or who their people are. But because it's our story, history must be preserved. And it must be told, all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, for all the reasons that I just stated. And we have our own recent dark history, like just within the last 100 years. Like the rise of real fascism. I say real fascism because that's one of those terms people throw out there now if they disagree with you. You're a fascist. I'm like, you don't even know what that means. But there was real fascism not too long ago with the rise of Hitler and the Nazis. That was real fascism. Hitler understood the power of history, right? So much so that he had a minister. They created their own history. Like they went out and created history and planted artifacts. They also sought to erase the history of Jews and homosexuals and gypsies and anybody who didn't agree with them. And at the end of it, there were 6 million Jews that were dead. Here in the States, we have our own dark chapters. Indian removal, we're all familiar with. Slavery, Japanese internment. And those are kind of the dark, ugly sides of history. But we also have a lot of good, and we have to tell both sides. We live in this time now where there's this focus on the dark chapters of American history, and we ignore all of the great things that this country has done. Because while there was slavery, we were the only nation on the planet who went to war, and 600,000 of our own citizens died to put an end to it. That's truth. It was John Huizinga in his work, The Task of the Cultural Historian, who stated, "History is the interpretation of the significance that the past has for us." And it's for this reason that we find history to be alive and powerful and active. The past speaks to us from the beginning of time into our present condition, and it shows us that all across humanity, our struggles are not new. In the spirit of Huizinga's proclamation that history is the interpretation of the significance that the past has for us, it must be truthfully interpreted. And this is where it comes back to you. Because it then begs the question, well, what is truth? And if there is truth, does it matter? And if it doesn't, then I would submit to you that all of our lives and all of our work is meaningless. Truth does matter. Philosopher and columnist Terry McLaughlin, writing for The Union, put it this way when describing truth. Truth is not simply what is coherent, understandable, or believed within a group. Because falsehoods are understood, agreed upon, and believed by a group of people, that does not make them true. Truth is not simply what is believed. A lie is believed and it's still false. Truth is not how we know, but what we know. There isn't your truth, my truth. There's only the objective truth. When people say my truth and your truth, that's just perspective. But there is an objective truth. Old timers knew it. They used to say there's three sides to every story. What are they? Your side, my side, and the truth. There's always truth. Which brings me back to our theme. Voices of truth. Whose voice is that? That's your voice. Voices of truth, our knowledge, our power. And more importantly, it brings me back to each one of you. Yes, you. See, each of you has a vocation and a calling. I firmly believe that we were each all created with purpose and for a purpose. I believe that each of you in your role as THPO officers, as archaeologists, as historians, as anthropologists, you bear witness to this, because I don't think very many people just stumble into being in historic preservation. Like, I've never talked to anybody who was in historic preservation or worked at a museum or anything like that. Says, yeah, I was working at a strip club and I thought, historic preservation might be the thing for me. I think we can all agree that it's a calling. It certainly isn't for the salary. It's certainly not for the fame or the notoriety. Calling goes much deeper than salary. It goes much deeper than notoriety. It speaks to a deep desire of the spirit and the soul. We used to teach young people that. We used to teach them the need to find their calling in life. Remember that? And when someone found their calling, we applauded it and we respected them for doing so. We stopped doing that. Instead, now we talk to young people and we encourage them to focus on salary and benefits and things like that. Is any wonder so many people are miserable in their jobs? But I believe you're called. If you believe that, say, I'm called. I got a dozen called people. I'm called. I have to remind myself that I'm called to be in the role that I'm in, because I got to tell you, there are days I'm like, I don't like doing this. In fact, right before I got here, I had one of those meetings where I was like, I don't like doing this. But everybody around me says, you're really good at it. I'm like, yeah, but I don't always like doing it. I believe you're called, and I believe I'm called. Historic preservation is a public trust, much like my role as a tribal leader. And I say this because we're all called to be agents of truth. Now, some of you may laugh and scoff and say, an honest politician. Well, I didn't call myself a politician. I said a tribal leader. Listen to the details. There's a difference. There's a real lack of that. If that's like the real national deficit these days, is leadership. We need leadership. We need leadership in every role and every facet in life. For all of us, truth must be the highest virtue. And in your calling, you have the highest level of public trust. To think about this, I'm going to tell you why. Because each of you has been entrusted to instruct the rest of us about what the truth is about the past. That's the public trust that you have. You are tasked with investigating, discovering, researching, and finding out what the truth of the past is and preserving it for the rest of us, and telling us today what the truth of the past is. Here's the courageous part. I asked you at the beginning, who wants to be courageous? About half of you raised your hand. Here's the courageous part. You also tell us the truth about the present by viewing the present through the lens of the past. We all know the old saying, those who ignore the past are what? Destined or doomed to repeat it. Each of you has the ability and the skill and the knowledge to instruct the present day about the truth by viewing it through the lens of the past. Why? Because history is cyclical. It was the Greeks who first realized and conceptualized that we as human beings keep doing the same thing over and over again. And you would think we would learn, but for some reason, we tend to forget. Here's the epic part. I asked you earlier, who wants to be epic? A lot of you raised your hand on that one. But let me tell you something about being epic and having a life of meaning and purpose. It's not always easy. I was reminded, like I'm coming up on the end of this term and people are like, you got to run again. And I'm like, I don't want to run again. People are like, you got to run again. I was reminded that being a leader, leaders are made in the fire. Leaders aren't made on the easy path. They're just not. If you and I are going to do great things, if you and I are going to do things that give meaning and purpose to life, sometimes it's going to be painful and sometimes it's going to be hard. So here's the epic and eternal part for you. The part where your work grants you a small bit of immortality. You have been entrusted with instructing and informing future generations about the truth of the past. And long after you're gone, that truth will continue to resonate. Let's go back to the root word for history. Does anybody remember what it was? Histor. It's a noun, one who knows or sees, an expert witness. That's you all. You're expert witnesses to the past. And you're tasked and entrusted with telling all the rest of us mere mortals the truth about the past, because the truth about the past will interpret what our future is. What does a witness do? A histor is an expert witness. A witness testifies to what they know to be true. So in your writing, in your reporting, in your research, in your lectures, tell the truth. How do I know it's imperative that you do so? Well, recently we were in Washington, D.C. for USET, and my wife, it was her first time going to D.C., and she said, I want to go to the Holocaust Museum. And I said, I know you've never been. I've been. I'm going to tell you, it's not fun. It's a very somber place to be. There's a weight in the air when you go in there. There's a sense of humanity being stripped away. While we were in there, one of the first rooms that you go into, it's a really big picture of Dwight D. Eisenhower, and there's a big quote on the wall from Dwight D. Eisenhower, and this is what it said, quote, "Get it all on record now. Get the films, get the witnesses, because somewhere down the road of history, some bastard will get up and say that this never happened." Was he wrong? No, he wasn't wrong. You can get on the internet right now and look, and like Iran, Holocaust never happened. There's all kinds of Holocaust deniers. It happened. If you've ever been to the Holocaust Museum, you know that it happened. It happened. I will close with this. Winston Churchill said, "History is written by the victors." I reject this line of thinking. Instead, I would submit to you that propaganda is written by the victors. History is excavated, cataloged, preserved, written, and told by the women who are called to be agents of truth for the rest of humanity. The histors, the ones who know, the ones who see, the ones who are an expert witness to the truth of history. I bid you Godspeed, grace and humility as you fulfill your calling, and always let truth be your guiding light. Ski.
Thank you so much, Principal Chief Sneed. I was lucky to be able to hear him speak last July at the Tribal Science Council meeting as well, and equally inspirational. I also want to know, Principal Chief, how did you know I used to work at a strip club? Kidding, Mom. I know my mom's listening somewhere. But that's enough from me. I'll have more time to introduce myself in a little bit, but for now, I want to welcome our executive director up to the stage. That would be Valerie Grusing, who is just now getting up like, wait, what? I have to come up on stage? Yes, Valerie, you do. Valerie is the executive director of NATHPO. She has been since 20-something. COVID time has no meaning. 2019, right, Valerie? End of 18. So let's put our hands together. She's done great things. Valerie.
Do you want to introduce the board? Did you want to introduce the board?
All I hear is echoes.
You want to go first? Or you want to do
No,
board?
you go first.
Wow, tough act to follow. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shasta. I guess I'll introduce myself first and then I'll turn it back over to Shasta. And we want to make sure that everyone knows our board of directors here. I have been here at NATHPO since the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. So it's been 4 years. And this is my first opportunity to meet many of you in person. And I am so grateful for that, to see you in all 3 dimensions and to shake your hand and say thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of NATHPO and for all that you do. I'm actually from North Carolina. I'm descended from colonizers, which is a fancy way to say I'm a white lady, grew up in the Raleigh area. So this is a little bit of a homecoming for me as well too. We're so grateful to our host, the Eastern Band here. It's been amazing watching this come together and being a part of that and experiencing this amazing hospitality here in Cherokee. I'm so grateful and honored to have this opportunity to lead NATHPO. It truly is the blessing and opportunity of a lifetime for me, and one that I don't take lightly. It's very humbling to stand up here and to see all of you and know the work that you do. And as Chief said, everything that you put into it. And I try to do my best to serve you. And that is the place that we come from here at NATHPO, as well as our team. So please say hi to me. If we haven't met, I want to be sure and meet everyone who has taken the time. And some of you have come a great distance to be here. And I want to shake all of your hands. I do want to introduce our team. This is a fairly new phenomenon for NATHPO as well. Melissa Madrigal, our Director of Operations. Many of you have seen her around the Zoom. She does a lot of things for us and has had a big role in getting us to where we are administratively and operationally. Julie Nelson, I don't know if she's in here. She might be out at registration. She is our communications and programming guru. Dr. Tim McEwen, there beside Melissa, if you could wave. He's our repatriation advisor, and we are so grateful for the expertise that he brings to that component of our work, and we will be hearing from him later today. Wes Furlong, are you here? Call you up. There you are. Wes is our attorney on many issues. He is a staff attorney at NARF, the Native American Rights Fund. So many comment letters that you have seen come out from us have been drafted by Tim and by Wes, and we are so thankful for everything they bring to the table. Our volunteers, Dina and Shannon out at registration, as well as Melissa's husband, Stuart, and my own husband, Matt, who's keeping the fires burning at home and usually runs the tech for our virtual NATHPO conferences. So shout out to everyone who has helped make this happen. And last but not least, our event planner, Kristen. If you've seen her around, I would like for everyone to give her a round of applause. The work that she's put into this has enabled me to be able to breathe, actually, and to have the time to meet all of you and have some conversations. And I'm really grateful for that. And I have a favor to ask of you. We are doing our best to do things in a good way. And there's some things that we don't know, and I can only speak for myself and I've been so grateful for the gift of sharing knowledge that so many of you have with me. And I ask for your patience and for your forgiveness if there's things that I don't do exactly in the way that you are used to them being done or would prefer that they be done. We're doing our best, and I thank you for that. And I also appreciate feedback that people have to offer me if there are things that they would like to see done differently. So I'll go ahead and do housekeeping and ground rules while I'm up here, and then I'll turn it back over to Shasta. We like real talk. We encourage it. We hope that that can remain respectful. I don't think that's something that necessarily need to be reminded of in an in-person setting. It's easier to say some things behind a keyboard that we wouldn't in person. And I'm looking forward to being able to have a slightly different experience here with you all today. If you're here, we all have a shared mission, but we may come from different understandings. And so I hope that we can have some real and some frank dialogue with people in a way that keeps communication channels open. Communication is key for relationships, so we do invite and encourage you to be frank but civil, of course. Registration, the desk closes at 1 p.m. today and tomorrow, but we will do our best to staff it for you. And we have volunteers, so if there's anything you need and there's no one at the desk, please just find one of us who you've seen around the desk. We're happy to try to help. We have space for side conversations in all of the pre-function space. So that is out by the registration desk, which goes all the way around to this side. We also have it on the 3rd floor and the 4th floor. So I know many of you are used to at NATHPO conferences space to have one-on-one conversations with colleagues, with agency partners, and we do have that space available for that purpose. I want to welcome Sheila Bird. Is Sheila here? You stand up, Sheila. And Dr. Brian Burkhart. Creators and host of NATHPO Talk, an Indigenous podcast, sort of working in the same space as NATHPO, trying to help provide information and tools and resources and connect you all together to better enable you to do your jobs effectively. And we're so excited to partner with them. They are going to have a recording booth set up in the small conference room that is just outside this door. So I will let Sheila tell you a little bit more about that as she's able. And we encourage you, I think, to stop by if there's something that you would like to share for posterity with the NATHPO Talk folks. The Wi-Fi info is on the back of your conference program for this particular, for the event center. And hello, and out in internet land to all of our streamers. Thank you for joining us virtually, and we are sorry that you are not here to be with us in person. We're going to stop recording. We're going to stop streaming over the lunch hour, so it'll just be the regular sessions and presentations and panels that are available in that virtual space. We will have the recordings of those sessions available afterward to registered participants, so you will get those links if there's anything that you do need to miss. And finally, thanks to our sponsors. They're all listed in the program, and this wouldn't be possible without their gracious support. And so if you see anyone here with a logo or a badge that matches up with one of those in the sponsor list, please do thank them. And we are so grateful for everyone helping make this happen. And those are all of my notes. I'll turn it back over to Shasta.